The human's name was Daniel, and from the very first moment he stepped onto the alien ship, he felt like he had made a mistake. The air was heavy, not because it was hard to breathe, but because every alien eye in the room turned toward him. And then, he saw her. She stood taller than any soldier he had ever seen, 7 feet of armored muscle, silver skin glowing under the ship's blue lights. Her hair, black and braided with metal rings, fell like a warrior's crown over her shoulders. Her eyes were sharp, glowing faint gold, eyes that could judge life or death in a second. This was Commander Celira, the war goddess of the Vare Empire. Every soldier on the ship bowed their head when she walked in. Every sound in the chamber stopped. Only her footsteps echoed, but Daniel, being human, made the mistake. He tried to joke, tried to hide his nervousness with humor. He whispered just loud enough for the translator device to carry his words. "Nice ship, goddess. But I have to admit you're the tallest date I've ever seen." The soldiers gasped. Some even reached for their weapons. No one dared speak to Celira that way. Not her generals, not her enemies. Certainly not a small human prisoner. But Celira didn't attack. She turned her head slowly, golden eyes fixing on him. Her lips curved, not into anger but into a dangerous smile. A smile that promised either doom or something worse. She stepped closer. Her shadow swallowed him. Her voice was low, sharp like steel drawn from a sheath. "You dare flirt with me, human?" Daniel swallowed. His mouth dry, his brain screamed at him to stop, but his lips betrayed him again. "Depends." Did it work? The room froze. Every alien soldier's jaw tightened, waiting for her to kill him in one blow. But instead, she laughed, a sound deep and echoing. Powerful enough to make the walls tremble, Celira leaned down, her golden eyes inches from his. "You amuse me." "Little one," she whispered, "and that is dangerous." From that moment, Daniel realized something terrible. She wasn't going to kill him. She wasn't going to let him go either. She wanted him close, a human who had dared to speak what no alien ever dared. A human foolish enough to call her beautiful in her own throne room. The other soldiers stared in disbelief. Some whispered that the goddess had chosen her next game. Others feared this was the beginning of something far worse. Celira turned to her warriors and raised one hand. "Leave us," she commanded. Her voice rang like a blade. The soldiers obeyed instantly, fear mixed with confusion on their faces. Now only Daniel and Celira remained in the chamber. Her eyes scanned him, studying every inch of the fragile human. Daniel felt the walls of the ship pressing in, felt the trap closing. "You don't understand, do you?" she said softly. "No one flirts with me, no one dares, and now that you have..." She paused, her smile curling into something dangerous. "You belong to me." Daniel's chest tightened. He tried to protest. "I'm not..." Her hand shot out, faster than his eyes could follow. Her fingers wrapped around his wrist, firm but not crushing. "You are mine. Human," she said, her voice calm. "You stepped into fire. And now you burn?" Daniel's mind raced. He hadn't meant it, he hadn't thought it through. He had joked because that's what humans did when nervous. But here, with an alien war goddess towering over him, his little joke had become a chain he could not break. The chamber doors sealed shut with a heavy hiss. Outside, whispers spread across the ship. Soldiers spoke of the strange human who dared to flirt with their goddess. Some called him brave, most called him insane. Inside, Daniel stood frozen, caught between fear and something he couldn't name. Celira leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "From this day, human, you are no longer free." His joke had become his prison. And the war goddess would not let him leave her ship. Daniel couldn't believe what had just happened. A joke, just a nervous, stupid joke, had chained him to a 7-foot alien war goddess. The chamber felt smaller now, the lights dimmer, the silence heavier, and Celira, the war goddess of the Vare, still hadn't let go of his wrist. Her grip wasn't painful, not crushing but unshakable, like iron wrapped in silk. It was as if she wanted him to feel her strength without using it fully. To remind him she could end him any second. "You look nervous, human," she said, her golden eyes studying his face. "Do you fear me?" Daniel's throat was dry. He wanted to answer carefully, but his human instinct betrayed him again. A smirk escaped his lips. "Fear you? Of course, but that doesn't mean I don't notice you're beautiful." The words slipped out before he could stop them. Celira's eyes narrowed. Her soldiers, listening from the shadows outside the chamber doors, stiffened in fear. No one, No one dared speak to her like this. But instead of anger, the war goddess tilted her head, as though she was trying to understand him. "You are strange," she said softly, almost curious. "Most who stand before me tremble. Beg or die," Daniel shrugged weakly. "Yeah, well, humans deal with fear by making jokes. It's survival, I guess." "Survival," she repeated, her lips curling around the word, "or foolishness." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then Celira's hand slid from his wrist to his shoulder. She leaned closer, so near that her hair brushed against his cheek. "You will survive." "Because I will keep you alive," she whispered. "But you are mine now." Daniel's stomach twisted. His freedom was gone, stolen by a single careless sentence. He looked into her glowing eyes and realized the truth. Celira wasn't just toying with him. She meant every word. The chamber doors slid open again. 2 alien guards stepped in, their armor glowing with faint blue veins. They bowed their heads to their commander. "My goddess," one said carefully, "shall we take the human to the cells?" Celira's eyes blazed. Her voice cut like thunder. "No," she said. "He will not be locked away." She pulled Daniel closer, her hand gripping his arm like a chain. "He stays with me." The guards exchanged a quick glance, shock flickering in their eyes, but they obeyed, bowing again and retreating silently. Daniel's heart pounded. He wasn't just a prisoner. He wasn't just a curiosity. He was now under the personal claim of a war goddess, and that was far more dangerous. Celira led him through the long metal corridors of the ship. The walls pulsed with strange lights, alive with alien energy. Every soldier they passed stopped to stare. Whispers followed them like shadows. Why is she keeping him? Has the goddess chosen a human? As hers? This is madness. Daniel tried not to listen, but every word made his stomach sink further. This wasn't just a mistake anymore. This was becoming legend on the ship. Finally, they reached her private chamber. The doors opened with a hiss, revealing a vast room filled with alien artifacts, weapons and banners of war. At the center stood a throne carved from black crystal, sharp and elegant. Celira released Daniel only when she reached the throne. She turned, towering over him. Her golden eyes burned with dangerous amusement. "You are bold human," she said slowly. "You speak without fear. You look at me as though I am not a goddess, but—" "A woman," Daniel raised his eyebrows. "Well, you are a woman, aren't you? Just, 7 feet tall and terrifying." For the first time, her face softened. Not anger, not cruelty, something else. A flicker of curiosity, maybe even respect. She lowered herself onto her throne, still staring at him. "You amuse me. But amusement fades," she said coldly. "You will have to prove your worth if you want to remain at my side." Daniel's chest tightened. "What happens if I don't?" he asked carefully. Her smile returned, sharp and cruel. "Then your bones will hang as trophies above my throne." The air grew colder. Daniel realized there was no middle ground. If he failed her, he would die. If he succeeded, he might still be trapped but alive. Celira leaned forward, her eyes gleaming like molten gold. "Tomorrow, you will join me in the training arena," she said. "I will test you in front of my warriors, in front of my generals. You will show me whether humans are worth keeping, or whether you are nothing but dust beneath my boots." Daniel's heart raced. A fight in front of her army against what? Against who? He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't trained for alien combat, but he had no choice. That night, as he sat in the corner of her vast chamber, under the watchful eyes of alien guards, he thought of Earth, of home, of freedom, and he whispered to himself, "One stupid joke. And now I'm fighting for my life tomorrow." The ship hummed around him, alive like a beast, and somewhere in the shadows, Celira's golden eyes still watched, waiting for the human who dared to flirt with her, waiting to see if he would survive. The next morning came too fast. Daniel had barely slept. His mind kept replaying Celira's words, "Tomorrow, you will join me in the training arena." Now that tomorrow had arrived, he felt the weight of every step. 2 armored guards entered her private chamber and ordered him to follow. He had no weapon, no armor. Nothing but his human body. Still, he walked. Because what choice did he have? The corridors buzzed with whispers. Every alien soldier seemed to know the story. The human who had dared to flirt with the war goddess. The human now walking to his trial. When the doors of the arena opened, Daniel froze. The space was massive, carved like a circle from black steel. Above him, Thousands of alien soldiers filled the stands, chanting, shouting, hungry for blood. The sound hit him like a wave. This wasn't a training test, this was a spectacle. Salira sat on a raised platform, her black crystal throne glowing under the alien lights. Her golden eyes burned as she watched him walk into the center. She didn't speak, she didn't need to. Her presence filled the entire arena. A booming voice echoed through the chamber. "The human will prove his worth before the goddess." From the far side, a gate opened, something stepped out. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. It wasn't a soldier. It was a beast 8 feet tall, covered in jagged scales, claws that could cut steel. Its eyes glowed red as it roared. Shaking the arena walls, Daniel whispered to himself, "You've got to be kidding me." The beast lunged forward. The ground shook under its weight. Daniel jumped aside at the last second, barely dodging the massive claws that sliced into the floor. The crowd roared with excitement. They weren't here to see if he survived. They were here to see him die. Salira leaned forward in her throne, her golden eyes fixed on him. Her soldiers whispered to one another, "Why would she waste a human this way? He has no chance. Unless—" Daniel scrambled backward, his mind racing. He couldn't outfight the beast, but maybe, just maybe, he could outthink it. The creature roared and charged again. Daniel spotted the arena floor, full of cracks and glowing veins of energy. Maybe the energy powering the arena could be used against the beast. But how? He grabbed a broken shard of metal from the ground. Not a weapon, just a piece of debris. Still, it was better than nothing. When the beast lunged again, Daniel rolled beneath its swing and jammed the shard into its side. It barely pierced the scales. The beast screamed, furious but not hurt. The crowd laughed, mocking him. The chants grew louder. "Kill! Kill! Kill!" Daniel's lungs burned, his legs shook, but deep inside, something stubborn rose in him. Humans had always survived by being underestimated. He wasn't going to die as a joke. Not here, not like this. The beast charged again. This time Daniel ran straight toward it. The crowd gasped at the last second. He slid beneath its legs. The beast stumbled forward. Crashing into one of the glowing energy veins in the floor, there was a spark. A crack of light. The creature roared in pain, its scales smoking. Daniel's eyes widened. It worked. The beast turned on him again. Angrier than before, Daniel's chest heaved. He couldn't fight it head-on, but he could trick it into slamming itself against the arena's energy veins again and again. He taunted it, waving his arms. "Come on, ugly. Over here!" The crowd gasped at his boldness. No one had ever spoken like that in the arena before. The beast charged, Daniel dodged, the claws missed him by inches. The creature smashed into another glowing crack. Another surge of energy shot through its body. Its roar turned to a scream. Salira's golden eyes narrowed. Her lips curved into the smallest smile. This human was not strong. Not fast, not trained, but he was clever. And cleverness was dangerous. The beast staggered, smoking now. Daniel saw his chance. He grabbed the broken shard of metal again and sprinted toward it. As the creature turned, he leapt, driving the shard into one of the glowing cracks in its body. The energy from the floor surged through the shard, straight into the beast's chest. The explosion of light blinded the arena. The beast collapsed with a final roar. Smoke poured from its body and then silence. The crowd froze. No laughter, no jeers, only stunned silence. The human had survived. Daniel stood in the center of the arena, shaking, bloody, exhausted, but alive. He raised his hands weakly, not in victory, just to show he was still standing. From above, Salira rose from her throne. Her golden eyes blazed like fire as her voice echoed through the chamber. "This human is mine," she declared. The entire arena bowed their heads in silence. None dared question her. Daniel collapsed to his knees. He wasn't sure if he had won or simply delayed his death. But one thing was certain. His fate was sealed tighter than ever. The war goddess had claimed him in front of her entire army, and there was no escape now. The arena was still echoing with silence. The crowd of alien soldiers did not cheer. They did not boo. They simply watched as the war goddess rose from her throne. Every soldier lowered their head as she stepped forward. Her golden eyes locked on Daniel, the man who had somehow survived. Guards rushed into the arena, but not to kill him. They lifted Daniel up, half-conscious. Dragging him before the throne, Salira stood tall, her black and gold armor shining under the alien lights. Her voice cut through the silence like a blade. "This human is under my protection." The soldiers bowed deeper. No one dared speak. Daniel's chest burned with pain. His legs barely moved, but even through the haze of exhaustion, he felt the weight of her words. Under her protection, he wasn't free, he wasn't safe, he was hers. Salira turned and gestured to the guards. "Bring him to my war chamber." Her words were cold, but her eyes lingered on him, sharp and calculating. The corridors were quiet as they dragged him through. No laughter this time, no mocking whispers, only the sound of boots and armor for the first time. The alien soldiers looked at him with something other than contempt. Not respect exactly, but something close to fear. Inside the war chamber, the doors sealed shut. The guards left. Leaving him alone with her, Daniel sat against the wall. Chest heaving, Salira stepped closer, removing her helmet. Her long silver hair spilled down her shoulders. Her face was fierce, carved like stone, yet strangely beautiful. "You survived," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with fire. "No human should have done what you did." Daniel coughed, forcing a laugh. "Yeah, well, humans are full of surprises." Her lips curved slightly. Not a smile, more like curiosity. "You turned the beast's strength against itself." "That was no accident," Daniel shook his head. "I didn't win, I just refused to die." Salira leaned closer, her golden eyes locked on him. "And that is exactly why you interest me." Daniel swallowed hard. He had seen how the soldiers looked at her. She wasn't just a leader. She was worshipped, feared, obeyed without question. And now she had spoken in front of them all, claiming him. There was no escape. Salira circled him like a predator. "You think this was a punishment?" she said softly. "You think I dragged you here for amusement?" Her voice lowered, sharper now. "You are wrong. Human." Daniel's hands clenched. "Then what do you want from me?" Her golden eyes glowed brighter in the dim chamber. "What I want is proof," she said. "Proof that you are not a mistake." Daniel blinked. "A mistake? You think I let you flirt with me and live by accident?" Her voice rose now, echoing in the chamber. "I could have crushed you where you stood. But I didn't. I saw something in you, a spark." Daniel's pulse quickened. "Or maybe you're just playing with me," he shot back. Like a cat with a mouse, her eyes narrowed. "You are bold to speak that way to me." Daniel met her gaze. "I'm not bold, I'm just too tired to care." For the first time, Salira laughed. It was low and dangerous. But there was something else there, too. Something that made Daniel's chest tighten. "You humans," she said, shaking her head. "You burn so quickly, but so brightly." She moved to a console at the side of the room, pressing her clawed fingers across alien controls. A large projection filled the chamber. Daniel froze. It was a star map. And Earth was glowing at the center. His throat went dry. Salira's eyes watched him carefully. "Your homeworld is small, fragile, unguarded." Her tone was cold, calculating. "My empire could destroy it in a single day." Daniel's chest clenched. "Then why haven't you?" Salira stepped closer again, her shadow falling over him. "Because I am not sure if I want to conquer it, or protect it." Daniel's stomach twisted. "And that depends on me?" Her golden eyes locked on him. "Yes," she whispered. "It depends entirely on you." The chamber grew colder. Daniel's thoughts spun out of control. What was she saying? Why would the fate of Earth depend on him? He was just one man, unarmed, trapped on her ship, but deep down he knew she wasn't lying. For some reason he couldn't understand. The war goddess had tied Earth's future to him, and if he failed, his entire planet would burn. Daniel did not sleep that night. He sat in the corner of the war chamber, staring at the glowing map of stars. Earth's small blue light still burned in his mind. Every breath reminded him. His planet's survival now rested on him, and he had no idea what Salira truly wanted. When the door slid open, armored soldiers entered. Their faces were hidden behind black helmets, their weapons crackling with alien energy. They motioned for Daniel to stand. "You will follow," one of them said in a low growl. Daniel's heart pounded. "Where are we going?" he asked. No answer, only silence. The soldiers led him through long corridors until they reached a docking bay. The air shimmered with the sound of engines. Alien ships stood ready, sharp as blades. Salira was there, already dressed in heavy battle armor, her silver hair tied back. Her golden eyes blazed when they met his. "You will come with me," she said. Daniel froze. "With you? Where?" Her lips curved slightly. "To war." Before he could argue, she handed him a strange weapon. It was long and sleek, glowing faintly. He had no idea how to use it, but her voice was firm. "You will learn quickly or you will die." Daniel swallowed, his hands trembling as he held the weapon. "Why me? You've got an entire army." Salira's eyes narrowed. "My soldiers obey orders, but you—" She stepped closer, her voice lowering. "You think differently. You act without fear of rules. That is what I need to see." Daniel's stomach turned. She wasn't giving him a choice. She was dragging him into something he couldn't escape. Moments later, they boarded a small warship. The vessel shook as it tore out of the docking bay. Through the window, Daniel saw stars rushing past. His palms were sweaty, his throat dry. He whispered to himself, "God, what am I doing here?" The mission became clear when Salira activated a projection in the center of the cabin. A massive alien cruiser appeared on the display, surrounded by dark fighters. "They betrayed me," she said coldly. "They thought I would not notice their secret dealings with my enemies tonight. We will remind them what happens when loyalty breaks." Daniel stared at the image. "You're taking me into a battle?" "Yes," she said simply. "And you will fight at my side." The ship rattled as they neared the enemy cruiser. Lights flashed red, alarms blared. The soldiers aboard prepared themselves, their voices chanting her name like a hymn. "Salira, Salira, Salira." Daniel gripped the strange weapon tighter. He didn't understand their language fully, but he understood their devotion. They weren't soldiers, they were worshippers. And he was stepping into their holy war. The battle began the moment their ship docked. The doors burst open. Enemy soldiers in dark armor stormed forward, weapons blazing. Salira roared, her voice echoing through the metal halls. "Kill them all!" Her troops surged forward like a tidal wave. Daniel ducked, almost frozen, until instinct kicked in. He lifted the glowing weapon and pulled the trigger. A blast of light tore through the first enemy soldier. The body fell smoking to the floor. Daniel's hands shook. He had never killed before. But there was no time to think. Another soldier charged. And Daniel fired again and again, until the hallway was filled with smoke and screams. Salira moved like a storm, her massive blade cutting through armor as if it were paper. She fought with beauty and terror combined. Every swing was precise, unstoppable. Daniel watched her in awe even as he fired blindly to stay alive. The enemy pushed them back deeper into the cruiser. Grenades shook the halls, sparks rained from the ceilings. Daniel's ears rang, his lungs burned. But still he fought. Something inside him refused to stop. He wasn't a soldier, but he was human. And humans had always been stubborn. They reached the control chamber. The enemy commander stood waiting, a massive figure with burning red eyes. He laughed when he saw Daniel. "A human?" he sneered. "This is what the war goddess brings into battle?" Daniel froze. The commander aimed his weapon at him. But before he could fire, Salira stepped between them, her blade raised. "Touch him and you die," she growled. The two clashed, sparks and fire filled the room. Daniel stumbled back, gripping his weapon. He wanted to help. But one wrong move could kill her or him. So he looked around, searching desperately, and then he saw it. The chamber's power core glowed at the far end. If he could overload it, maybe the battle would turn. His heart pounded. It was insane, suicidal. But it was the only chance. Daniel sprinted toward the core, ignoring the screams. The clash of steel, the burning heat. He ripped open a panel and slammed his weapon into the circuits. The entire chamber shook as sparks exploded. The lights flickered, alarms screamed. The enemy soldiers panicked, shouting. The commander roared in fury. Salira turned just as the power core began to melt down. Her golden eyes locked on Daniel for a heartbeat. He thought she would kill him for acting on his own. But instead, she smiled. The ship shook violently. Explosions ripped through the walls. Salira grabbed Daniel and pulled him toward the exit. "Now you understand," she shouted over the chaos. "This is why I keep you." The cruiser erupted behind them as their warship tore free. The stars lit up with fire. Daniel collapsed to the floor of the cabin. Gasping for air, Salira stood over him, her armor scorched. Her golden eyes blazing with something fierce. "You are dangerous," she whispered. "More dangerous than you know." And Daniel realized something terrifying. He wasn't her prisoner anymore. He was becoming her weapon. The ship's great hall was silent, but the silence felt alive. Torches burned blue along the walls, shadows dancing across alien symbols carved into the stone. The human walked slowly into the center of the hall, his heart pounding. Above him, the alien war goddess sat on a throne of metal and crystal, her golden eyes glowing like twin suns. "This is the moment," she said, her voice echoing through the hall. "You will prove if you are worthy to remain on my ship, or you will be broken before my people." The crowd of alien warriors cheered, their voices shaking the walls. The human felt their eyes on him, watching, waiting, hoping to see him fail. But deep inside he refused to bend. The goddess raised her hand and the floor split open. From the ground rose a creature made of flame and stone, its body burning with living fire. The alien warriors stepped back, but the goddess leaned forward with a smile. "This is the beast of judgment," she whispered. "No human has faced it and lived," the creature roared, fire spilling across the floor and heat pressed against the human's skin. He had no weapon, no shield, only his courage. The warriors laughed, pointing, shouting words of mockery. "Look at the small human. He will burn in seconds." But the human did not move. He stood still, eyes locked on the fire beast. Then he did something none of them expected. He stepped forward into the heat, into the fire. The flames licked at his clothes, but he did not scream. He walked closer and closer, until the fire beast towered over him like a mountain. The warriors fell silent, their laughter dying in their throats. The goddess leaned back in her throne, her smile fading, her golden eyes narrowing. The human raised his hand slowly, carefully. The beast roared, its fire swirling, but it did not strike. It froze, staring down at the human as if it recognized something inside him, something deeper than flesh, something older than fear. The hall was so silent now that even the torches seemed to stop crackling. Then, to everyone's shock, the fire beast bent its head. It bowed, the flames dimmed, wrapping around the human like a cloak instead of an attack. Gasps echoed across the hall. The warriors dropped their weapons in disbelief. The goddess herself rose from her throne, her eyes wide with shock. "This is impossible," she whispered. The human looked up at her, fire dancing harmlessly across his arms. "No," he said calmly. "It's only human." The hall erupted into chaos. Voices shouting, warriors arguing, fear spreading like a storm. But the goddess only stared at him, her golden eyes glowing brighter than ever. For the first time, she did not look like a predator. For the first time, she looked afraid, and in that moment, the human realized something powerful. He was no longer a guest, no longer a prisoner. He was becoming something else, something the galaxy had never seen before. The fire beast roared again, but this time it was not a challenge. It was a promise. It would follow him, obey him, guard him. The human had tamed the judgment of the goddess. She took one step down from her throne, her long hair flowing like fire itself. "You are dangerous," she said, her voice shaking for the first time. "And dangerous men cannot be allowed to leave." The human looked up at her, fire still burning on his hands, and gave her the smallest smile. "Then maybe," he said, "you should stop trying to make me leave." The hall shook with the power of his words. The goddess stared at him, torn between fury and fascination. The warriors waited, holding their breath. And in that silence, everyone knew the true war had just begun. The hall was heavy with silence. Every alien warrior stood frozen, their weapons lowered, their eyes locked on the human cloaked in fire. The beast of judgment stood beside him like a guardian, its flames calm, its eyes glowing as if it had chosen its master. The war goddess stood on the steps of her throne, golden eyes fixed on him. Her face was unreadable, caught between rage, awe, and something far more dangerous, curiosity. "You walk through fire as if it were nothing," she whispered, her voice echoing across the chamber. "You tame what none of my people have ever dared." The warriors looked between her and the human, fear spreading in their ranks. "Kill him now," one shouted, "before he grows stronger." But no one moved, not a single blade lifted, not a single arrow drawn, because deep inside they already knew. If fire itself bowed to him, then perhaps the gods of war had chosen this small human. The human's breathing was heavy, his body shaking from the heat, but he kept his eyes on the goddess, refusing to look away. "I never asked for this," he said, voice calm but hard. "I only wanted to leave." Her golden eyes narrowed. "And now? I cannot let you leave," she said slowly. "Not because you are weak, but because you are too dangerous." She stepped down from her throne, each step echoing like thunder. The air around her shimmered as her power grew, her long hair lifting like strands of molten light. The ground cracked beneath her feet, the hall trembling. The human could feel her strength. It was like standing before a storm made flesh. The fire beast snarled, fire swirling across its body. The warriors raised their shields, unsure if they were about to witness the goddess destroy the intruder. or be destroyed by him. She stopped only a few steps away from him, towering over him, 7 feet of raw power and beauty. Her voice dropped to a whisper only he could hear. "You are mine now," she said, "not as a prisoner, not as prey, but as something far more dangerous." The human tilted his head, his eyes narrowing. "And if I refuse?" For the first time she smiled, a real smile. Not cruel, not mocking, but sharp as a blade. "Then you will burn this ship to ash," she said, "because fire will follow you wherever you go, and I will chase that fire to the ends of the galaxy." The human looked at her, at the beast beside him, at the warriors frozen in fear, and he realized something terrifying. He was no longer trapped. He was no longer powerless. He was a piece of fate itself, and fate had tied him to the war goddess. The beast roared, flames bursting toward the ceiling, lighting up the symbols carved into the stone. The goddess extended her hand, palm open, waiting. The entire hall held its breath. If he took her hand, he would no longer be a free man. If he refused, the war that followed would burn across the stars. He hesitated, his chest rising and falling. Then slowly he raised his own hand and placed it against hers. The flames surged, wrapping around them both, binding them together like chains of fire. The warriors gasped, some kneeling, some crying out in fear. The ship itself groaned as if alive, the power of their bond shaking its very frame. The goddess leaned closer, her golden eyes glowing brighter than the sun. "You are no longer my mistake," she whispered. "You are my destiny." The human did not answer, but deep inside he knew one thing was true. His life would never be his own again. He had stepped onto her ship as prey, but now he stood beside her as something greater, something terrifying, something unstoppable. And far out in the endless black of space, unseen by both human and goddess, signals pulsed. Other fleets, other powers, had felt the surge of fire and fate. The galaxy was watching, and it was about to burn.